Conviction politician Sir Keir Starmer is not. I suspect that's why he couldn't bear to have the image of Mrs Thatcher looking down on him. In my view, she was everything that he's not. Next to the Iron Lady, he's more like a Tin Man. Margaret Thatcher was our first ever female Prime Minister, so a woman, no penis, and she was the longest-serving Prime Minister of the 20th century. 3 terms in office Mrs Thatcher had, the Iron Lady. Being able to stand up and defend her beliefs, answer questions from those who may have held a different view, shows that she had the courage of her convictions, and I don't mean the jailing kind. Being able to take people with you or even win them over with logic and reason, that's to be respected. Since Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, I, even though he was not my choice, was prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt and support the democratic vote. I use the word loosely because only about 20% of the electorate voted for him, but that's the system we've got, and more fool us if we didn't go out and use it. But with every passing press conference thus far, Keir Starmer has declined to take a question from GB News. Why? What's he afraid of? Mrs Thatcher would never have done that. She was fearless, the Iron Lady. And that's why ex-Labour leader Gordon Brown proudly commissioned a £100,000 painting of her, which sat prominently in the Thatcher room until now. Gordon unveiled the painting to the Iron Lady at a private reception in 2009. It's painted by Richard Stone, one of Britain's leading portrait artists. We've been told repeatedly by our now government and their blatantly biased supporters like Carol Vorderman that the adults are back in charge. But how childish is that? Removing an image of a 3-time election hero. When Keir was after the Tory voters, he commended her.
The rule of law is the foundation for everything. Margaret Thatcher called it the first duty of government, and she was right about that. An expression of individual liberty, our rights and responsibilities.
Seems odd that since winning over many with his rhetoric, that he can't even bear her painting in the same room. Judging by Keir's first 8 weeks and his latest missteps like removing the winter fuel allowance from pensioners and that on independent schools, which ironically wouldn't be allowed in the EU and has failed every time it's been attempted, he'll be lucky if he lasts even 1 term, let alone 3. He's already got the civil service regulator breathing down his neck. They're about to launch a review on appointments by the party after accusations of cronyism. Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding, apparently telling people she got quicker treatment on the NHS because she voted for a ceasefire in Gaza. And now Jazz Athwell, MP for Ilford South, has been caught out renting ant-infested mouldy flats. His flats also didn't have the right licence under a scheme that he, Mr Atwell, introduced last year. So I can see why Keir clearly finds a picture of the Iron Lady, in his words, unsettling. In my view, he's intimidated, more tin than iron, methinks. He's skirted around the subject of immigration and imprisoned writers, which I don't disagree with, but could he not apply that same gusto to hardened criminals as well, instead of emptying the jails of them? Whether you like it or not, Keir, the public have a right to be heard and have their legitimate questions answered. Hiding behind your parliamentary majority will only see you through, if you're lucky, just 1 term. If you have the courage of your convictions, Keir, and I don't mean the jailing kind, you, Keir, should be afraid of no one. Removing a picture of an iconic woman tells me everything I need to know. But it's OK, folks. The adults are back in charge. Yes. Well, stay tuned. Loads more still to come on GB News. Before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. It's been confirmed this afternoon that 2 people have died at the Notting Hill Carnival. I'll be asking, is it time to remove the event from its current location? Also, earlier this week, Sir Keir Starmer confirmed that the government is looking at tougher rules on outdoor smoking. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the smoking ban a big distraction from winter fuel payments? And don't forget, in the pulse, stay tuned for this. I'll be speaking to a healthcare expert about Ozempic, as researchers have found that the obesity drug could also slow down the process of ageing. Bring it to me now. That's coming up in the next hour. As ever, your thoughts, your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel former Labour leader. You weren't, Bill Rammell. Well, you were a leader, minister. Somebody's put a leader there. And also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Bill Rammell, I'm going to start with you. It's fair to say that, removing a picture of Mrs Thatcher, seriously.
I think there's a lesson out of that.
Which is?
It's don't inadvertently pick a fight that you don't need. Now, Keir had every right, as does every minister and prime minister, to choose which paintings from the government art collection they have in their place of work. That's what he was doing. I think he probably didn't want any prime minister looking down on him whilst he was working.
Why?
Because, it's about the new era, it's about moving forward. But...
Would he have not seen himself that he is in the same lineage, in a sense, as Mrs Thatcher?
Should be honoured.
Well, hold on. Let me finish. Whilst I think he's got every right to do, whilst he's got every right to do what he did, I think it ends up as a distraction from the narrative of change that he and the government rightly want to project.
Do you think maybe he was doing that on purpose for the distraction, to get out for the winter fuel payments?
No,
you don't talk about that.
He's not the person who released this story. It's Tom Baldwin, his biographer. And I think this is for want of a better phrase, an inadvertent cock-up, and I think we could do without it.
Yeah,
Lizzie,
and Margaret Thatcher will be turning in her grave, not just because her portrait has been taken down, but what he's actually doing to this country. In power 57 days, and what a mess, I have to say. I think this removal of her portrait says a lot about him. I think it's disgraceful, I think it's disrespectful, I think it's petty, and I actually think it's sexist. A man who's that easily intimidated... It just amazes me. He's our Prime Minister. He must lack some confidence that he's worried. Do you know what my worry is? He's in for another 5 years. The man that can't look at Margaret Thatcher's picture, he could take a lot off Margaret Thatcher with her strength.
Can I just ask you, do you think, Bill, that this... I mean, remember, it took him a while to say whether a woman doesn't have a penis or not. He struggled to describe what a woman is. Do you think that maybe there's some sort of other issues regarding women? I mean, that's just my thought. I'm asking, because she's a woman and she's up there.
I think he's an absolute champion of women's rights. However...
He couldn't answer the question.
Let's not rewrite history. I've got respect for Thatcher, but she was actually enormously divisive, and millions of people in this country opposed her. Yes, respect, and compared to her Tory successors that we've seen over the last 14 years, she's an absolute giant and a statesperson. But, not without her critics, and I don't think we should set her up as the be-all and end-all.
Nobody's setting her up for the be-all and end-all, but, Gordon Brown was the person who commissioned the picture. He's a Labour person.
Yeah.
And he was able to, with respect, look at her and say, this woman has completed 3 terms. If there was a picture of Tony Blair, as much as I voted for Tony Blair many years ago anyway, for the first few terms, anyway, not the last one.
Look,
but, you should be able to deal with that.
You don't have to agree with her policies, but have respect. I know the Thatcher family, I know Mark Thatcher. They are absolutely appalled by this, and I think it's a huge error, Bill, and it says a lot about this man. And we're seeing now the real Keir Starmer.
Well, look, he has got respect for her. Last year he actually talked about his respect as someone brought about meaningful and lasting change.
He's trying to get votes.
No, about freeing the entrepreneurial spirit of British people. So I think he has got respect. I think this is a cock-up, and I think with hindsight he wouldn't do it again.
Well, he's supposed to be Captain Hindsight, so maybe he's looking back now. But it's not a very good look, Keir. But Downing Street House refused to say what it's done with Margaret Thatcher's portrait after Sir Keir Starmer had it removed from her former study. But let's see. We'll find out more about that. We'll bring you a statement for that too. But let's come back to our top story this hour. 32-year-old mother and a man who were attacked in 2 separate incidents over the Notting Hill Carnival weekend have died. Now, the Metropolitan Police said that Cher Maximum, who had been at the Carnival last Sunday with her 3-year-old daughter, died in hospital this morning. And separately, Musi Imentu, who worked as a chef and was found unconscious on Monday evening near Notting Hill. He's also died from his injuries. Well, speaking to my panel, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, is it time to move Notting Hill Carnival?
Most definitely, most definitely. And I just want to say I'm so sorry to all the families. I mean, Muzzy was working in Dubai.
So you know the chef?
I know of the chef, yeah. A great young talent, came to visit, was working in Dubai at the restaurant Sexy Fish, which is very well known, and had a huge career, was hoping to go into TV. I absolutely am heartbroken for them and their families, the loss of life to young people being snatched away. This carnival has to stop. 334 arrests, up by 275 from last year, 50 officers injured, 3 firearms recovered, 49 arrests with weapons, 8 stabbings, 2 deaths. How much more? It has to stop.
I'm still waiting for something from Mayor Khan, but Bill Rummel.
Yeah, like Lizzie, I feel this personally. You know, the mother who's got a 3-year-old child. My youngest grandson is 3. If something like this happened to his mum, he would be utterly devastated.
Of course.
It is awful, and my heart goes out to them. But we do need some context. There are over 1 million people who attend the Notting Hill Carnival. If you look at the annual crime rate in Notting Hill, and that includes the festival, it's in the average of local authority areas within the country. However, the circumstances and conditions of the carnival are so compressed within a narrow area of London. I think there is a case for moving it to Hyde Park or somewhere else where it can be more effectively policed.
Yeah, because I wrote a piece in the Daily Mail last year and everyone said, oh, somebody told you to write that because of what I said. Yeah. No, nobody told me to write it and I wrote it. I'm very pleased with what I said in there. And it was basically saying that Carnival should be moved. And I can't bear to watch people running around with machetes. I mean, last year there was a video of people just running around with machetes as though...
Well, we need to ban the machetes.
I mean,
they need to ban them,
but you wouldn't get in, would you, if it was in a closed environment?
No, and my friends that actually do live in Notting Hill have to leave the area. They're boarded up, and on their cameras, everyone is going to the toilet on their property. Yeah. It's absolutely disgusting and a disgrace. But what has gone on here? How many more lives have to be lost? What is our Mayor of London doing?
Where is he?
Where is he? Where's his voice now?
Have you heard Sadiq Khan say anything about this? I mean, I'm waiting to hear something. I don't know whether we have a statement.
I think he has made a statement, but, you know, the reality is if you have over 1 million people in a tightly confined area, you are going to have a very small minority who commit crimes. Now, 1, we need to tackle those crimes, but 2, I think there is a strong case to move it somewhere else.
I think Hyde Park's a great idea. I think Hyde Park's a great idea, but can I say with the Mayor of London, he was pushed into talking to this by GB News because he didn't actually mention the stabbings and the death, and I think that's a disgrace.
Do you know, stabbings are a huge problem across the country, not just in London. Actually, in the Midlands, the problem is even worse. And I tell you the real tragedy, virtually every crime, the numbers have gone down in the last 30 years under successive governments, with the exception of knife crime, which has gone up exponentially since 2015, and we've got to tackle that.
Well, we do, Bill, and I think it's a lot more important than doing a big thing about smoking outside in beer gardens. The government needs to concentrate on this.
You need to do everything.
Well, you need to do everything, but you need to do something now. And I'm not hearing enough action from those in power. And I'm hoping that Keir Starmer will do something about this as well. I hope he does punish those who...
Well,
too many young lives are being lost.
We've already made it clear the weapons that we are going to ban. We're bringing forward legislation. There needs to be a default position that any young person convicted of carrying a knife gets some form of sentence, whether it's tagging, whether it's curfews, or whether it's actually imprisonment.
But sadly, Bill, the punishment, he's letting people out early. They know they're not going to get prosecuted.
But, come on, Lizzie, we faced a crisis inherited from the last government.
Hold on, stop, no, you hold on. I don't want to hear about the crisis from the last government. I want to hear what's happening now. I'm not interested. We know about the crisis of the last government. They are scraping around, still arguing with each other. We're not interested in that. The Labour Party are in government. That's what we want to hear about.
And do you know what? The Labour Party are not superhuman. And if you inherit a situation where the previous Prime Minister had been repeatedly told you either build more prison places or you agree to early release, and he did nothing about it, you can't in 8 weeks solve that problem.
Let me just quickly remind you, Tony Blair didn't rebuild any buildings. He knew they were crumbling, prisons and schools.